Please welcome today to discuss the impact of Scottish Government's direction and policy upon the rights of women and children, Caroline McAllister.
Oh, I'm mortified. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, looking out at all you wonderful, seditious women. And I want to say a special thank you to Forth Valley Feminists for organising this fantastic event. What a great day. I've digressed a little bit from my original script following Thursday's farce, because that's about all that I can really say about it. So please bear with me and forgive me. But first of all, I want to start by saying, Marion, Trina and Susan from For Women Scotland, you are legends. We all owe you a massive debt of gratitude, including those women who disparage, misrepresent and oppose what you do. And one day, I believe they will grow to realise what a timely and important intervention you made. No female escapes the patriarchy. It's woven into every aspect of our society, from healthcare to education, business, the judiciary, and especially the police. I suspect without your courage in taking the recent successful action and the huge personal risk attached in taking on the Scottish establishment, we would see more crap, unevidenced policies and legislation that further marginalises women while dismissing our concerns as bigotry. So I want to say thank you, you wonderful sheroes. Like many here today, I thought women had made good progress in fighting and securing our rights. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. The suffragettes fought for and secured our right to vote. Our mothers and grandmothers carried forward that fight and succeeded in securing parity of esteem in many areas of public life for women. We had the right to have our own bank account, secure a mortgage. We'd no longer had to disguise ourselves to get access further education as men. And recently, we secured our hard-fought rights over our own bodies and our reproductive rights. As I said, it wasn't perfect, but it was going in the right direction. Of course, male violence against women is still a huge issue and remains so. But progress was being made with the Domestic Abuse Act, which criminalised psychological, domestic abuse and coercive and controlling behaviour. The promises made by the First Minister on the steps of Buchanan Galleries in May 2015, when she launched the original SNP Women's Pledge, were coming to fruition, or so I thought. What wasn't commonly known were the moves going on behind the scenes to dismantle many of those rights our foremothers had bravely fought for and secured. It's been a rough few years for many women defending our rights. I recall way back in 2017 when I was my first time as a councillor and an SNP councillor, and I was witnessing more and more of the violent imagery and threats aimed at women defending their rights. And because I was a new councillor, I knew I had to be cautious about what I said publicly. And then along came Joan McAlpine and her legendary thread, an incredibly brave move that we all know ended her political career. A high price paid because misogynistic, beardy blokes and their Lib Fem allies within their own party were intolerant of any opposing views, regardless of how reasoned and balanced those views were. A thoroughly shameful period in the history of the governing party of Scotland. Of course, the bullying, gaslighting and abuse of women isn't exclusive to the SNP. Labour and the Lib Dems aren't any better. But the crown of misogyny must go to the Greens. A party that can't even acknowledge women as being adult human females, but prefer to describe women as non-men. A party leader who oozes misogyny, sexism and gynophobia and thinks it's acceptable to call women defending our rights far-right extremists. A party leader who thinks it's acceptable to attack lesbians, who we all know are same-sex attracted, as bigots for not accepting penises in their dating pool. In my book, that's rape culture. And all this prejudice wrapped up in so-called progressive language, it reveals a devious, disingenuous tactics designed to monster women and elevate men as victims of us nasty women. Denton's playbook is very much in use. So on Thursday, when Shona Robison read her statement in the Parliament on the GRA reform, I swear I felt a collective eye roll across Scotland when she spoke of respectful debate and tone. Did she miss the numerous calls for respectful debate from grassroots women's groups over the years? Did she miss the standard war cry from the gender ideologues, no debate? Did she miss the open letter back in 2019 signed by 15 elected members of her own party calling for respectful debate? Has she missed the ongoing vendetta of hate targeting one of her Westminster colleagues for having the audacity to defend lesbians and women from this deeply lesbophobic and misogynistic ideology? Where were these so-called reasoned voices with their acceptable tone when women in our party were being smeared, harassed and bullied, where rape and death threats continue to be a regular feature for Joanna Cherry? And the First Minister has not spoken one word of condemnation. Shame on her. Where were the reasoned voices when traumatized women were disclosing their experiences of male sexual violence in a desperate bid to be heard and their needs met? Where was Shona Robison when they were targeted and accused of weaponizing their trauma during the Medical Forensic Services Bill debate? A cruel and shameful episode from the chattering classes. Was the First Minister's emergency broom cupboard broadcast respectful, where she pleaded for some of the worst bullies to return to the party after they threw their toys out the pram following the success of the 6 Words campaign? Why she didn't take that opportunity to try and calm the waters and acknowledge the pain on both sides of this debate will remain a mystery to me. It certainly wasn't her finest moment and revealed a leader captured by a minority of loud, aggressive activists. Oh, what short and selective memories some of our parliamentarians have. Thursday's statement was another example of the performative politics we've sadly come to expect in Holyrood. Was it respectful when Shona Robison said, "There is no evidence that predatory and abusive men have ever had to pretend to be anything else to carry out abusive and predatory behaviour"? And it met with applause from her nodding dog colleagues. Shame. The collective gasp at such an ignorant and ill-informed statement was heard all over the UK, I'm sure. Predators have pretended to be children's entertainers, charity workers, priests, vicars, teachers, politicians, carers and doctors, but to name a few. This level of fuckwittery leads me to wonder. leads me to wonder, do they all think we're knitted? The cognitive dissonance on view was eye-watering. Are they unaware there's a massive ongoing inquiry of child sex abuse happening down the road from their comfy offices in Holyrood? Was the message to women and girls, they're going to rape you anyway, so stop complaining? It certainly sounded so. The line about not introducing any new rights was another moment of incredulity. By removing the requirement of a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, they are opening up a process designed to help a small cohort of people, opening it up to a much wider cohort, including creating the opportunity for abusive, dangerous, predatory men to take advantage while removing all the safeguarding measures in place to ensure bad faith actors don't abuse the system. The evidence tells us trans women offend at the same rate as men. We know not all men and not all trans women are offenders, but we can't tell who are and who aren't. That's why safeguarding measures are vital and were in place before the Scottish Government decided to dismantle them. It is long past time safeguarding training for parliamentarians was mandatory. Perhaps if they were better informed, they wouldn't be so keen to dismantle the mechanisms put in place over many years to minimise the risks for women and children from predatory men. Perhaps they wouldn't be so keen to open up women refuges to any man who says they are a woman, or employ a legal male who wants women to reframe their trauma and cleanse the women's movement from our bigotry. Entitled males always out themselves. Evidence gathered over decades informs us that women recovering from male violence are best served with same-sex practitioners. This proposed bill disregards that best practice, despite there being no evidence to the contrary. Perhaps they would know that locking up male convicted sex offenders with vulnerable women in the female prison estate is not only dangerous, but exceedingly cruel. And despite Shona Robinson's assertions that there is no evidence to support our concerns, there is plenty of evidence, Karen White being only one example. Perhaps if they were better informed, they wouldn't be supportive of children and young people being told they're born in the wrong body and they can change their sex, setting them up for a life of trying to achieve the impossible and encouraging them on to a medical pathway with all the risks associated. While the usual suspects took to social media to assert other countries have introduced self-ID without issue, they ignore the concerning reports coming out of unintended consequences. Ireland's leading endocrinologist and gender specialist, Dr. O'Shea, is on record expressing concern about the significant increase of children and young people seeking gender reassignment treatment, and revealing gender lobby and advocacy groups are coaching them in what to say to avoid the safeguarding measures in place. Sweden has reversed their decision on prescribing puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones after research showed the risks were significant. France is the latest country to roll back from the affirmation, from the affirmation without exception model, a model based on a bloody slogan. They're now calling for extensive psychological evaluations, citing the influence of social media on young distressed people. They've urged great medical caution due to the impact of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, specifically on bone health, sterility, and emotional and intellectual consequences, and for females, the high risk of early menopause. Yet we have Scottish MPs only a few weeks ago signing a letter which effectively called for the criminalisation of psychotherapists for doing their job, We really have gone through the looking glass in Scotland. Shona Robison spoke of the evidence to support GRA reform, yet ignores the growing body of evidence telling us that gender ideology, which is driving this reform, is fraught with dangers, especially for women and children. And quite frankly, it's a load of bollocks based on sexist stereotypes. What happened to Scotland, the country of enlightenment? A country that now produces legislation and policies based on feelings while ignoring facts. A country where, despite numerous detransitioners speaking up about the dangers of rushing children and young people onto a medical pathway, are ignored, while lobby groups are given huge amounts of taxpayers' money to lobby the Scottish Government to implement dangerous legislation and policies that effectively erase women as a distinct class. The few grassroots women's groups who were granted an audience with the Minister continue to have numerous questions left unanswered, their evidence ignored and their concerns dismissed, as confirmed by Shona Robison when she was asked what changes were made following the meetings with these groups. Well, they're going to monitor the number of applications of GRCs. Yep, all that effort, evidence and time by volunteers disregarded while well-paid professional feminists and lobby groups are lauded for capitulating to the government's agenda. The more this Green SNP government shout inclusion, the more apparent it becomes this ideology is regressive and exclusive. Ordinary women continue to do the heavy lifting, the unpaid labour, while those who should be representing our concerns sell us out for their 30 pieces of silver. Shame on them. I used to think a woman's place was in politics. I now think a woman's place is in the revolution. Women... Thank you. And my final message to you is, women, don't ever fucking wheesht.